morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, everybody, to Conscious Living Spiritist Group, our Sunday meeting. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be able to be here to gather the information here, put on in the form of a study and a lecture. So it's always a pleasure and an honor to be here. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, I would say, called invisible influence. So we're going to be looking at how are we influenced by our invisible friends, or perhaps not so much friends at times. So first and foremost, we have to talk about the Spiritist book. By the way, I usually leave on the top right of my slides the source for that specific slide. So if you like what you see, you want to go and get the book yourself and check it out. So don't trust my word, just check out what they're saying. The first thing we got to talk about when we're mentioning invisible influence or unseen influence is the question 459 of the Spirit's book. Can Spiritists, this is 457, it's going to set up for 459. Can spirits see our most secret thoughts? Are they able to peer through whatever it is that we're thinking in a specific moment? And they're going to say, they often see what you would fain hide from yourself. Neither acts nor thoughts can be hidden from them. Meaning, there are things that we would like to hide even from ourselves that visit our mind, that we think sometimes. But the spirits, meaning the discarnate spirits, they can see our innermost thoughts, even those that we are ashamed perhaps, or that we don't want them to see. But especially the higher spirits, the more evolved they are, the better their capacity to be able to peer through our thoughts and see what it is that we're thinking in a specific moment. So they're saying, yes, they can see what you're thinking, even those things that you would like to hide from yourself. And then 459 they ask, do spirits influence our thoughts and our actions? 457 is, do they see what we're thinking? Are they able to look at this? At least what we thought, to a certain extent, was the secret temple, my mind, this closed box, my most private. No, forget about it. They can see that, but can they influence that? Can they influence our thoughts and our actions? 459, they're going to say, their influence upon them, thoughts and actions, is greater than you suppose. For it's very often they who direct both. Their influence is greater than we suppose. Reading that, we should already be aware. We should already be on the lookout, and so they can actually influence my thoughts and my actions more than I think, more than I realize. How so? In what way? To what extent? For what? So these are questions we must be asking ourselves, and I hope to breach some of these questions in today's talk, where we're going to see that they influence us more than we realize. And they even say, because oftentimes it's them, the discarnate spirits, and I'm talking for the incarnate spirits, but we also have discarnate spirits among us listening to this. But the incarnate spirits, we are influenced, and they often, discarnate ones, influence our thoughts and our actions. They direct both. We're going to see how. 460, so the next question after that, they ask, have we some thoughts that originate from ourselves and others that are suggested to us? So do we have anything that is our own? They're going to say, your soul is a spirit who thinks. You must have observed that many thoughts, and frequently very opposite thoughts, come into your mind in reference to the same subject and at the same time. In such cases, some of them are your own and some are ours. This is the cause of your uncertainties, because you have thus in your mind two ideas that are opposed to each other. So they're saying, have you ever noticed when you're thinking about something that sometimes these very opposite thoughts on a specific subject, they all of a sudden come to us? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we may be thinking of carrying out a situation a certain way or taking some sort of action, and all of a sudden we have the opposite, almost like the opposite thought. And they're saying here, yes, some of that it's coming from yourself, but some of that is coming from us. Also, in also in the good and in the bad ways. Sometimes we may be wondering, or we may be tempted because of a thought to do an action that it's a bit contrary to what we truly want to be doing, and all of a sudden we get that thought, almost like that glimpse of consciousness where we're like, no, I can't, I'm not gonna. Or the other way around. Mm-hmm. When we lose our temper, when we say things that we wish we could just put back here, oftentimes that's influence. And they're saying exactly that. Because she's saying this is the cause of your uncertainties, because you have thus in your mind two ideas that are opposed to each other. Meaning two ideas that one perhaps is coming from us and the other one is coming from our invisible friends. And then 461 is interesting because they ask, okay, so how can we distinguish them? If we have two opposite ideas, if we have ideas that are not ours and some that are ours, how can we distinguish? And they say when a thought is suggested, it's like a voice, and they say you got to understand the type of suggestion, because you see the quality of it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. In the book Divine Justice, this is a book by Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico. Emmanuel's going to tell us this. He says, if one day you're hungry for greater hope, do not be afraid to ask for inspiration and assistance from the beloved hearts that preceded you on the great journey. They will be with you, supporting your energies in human tasks like stars in the night sky of longing, so that you know how to wait patiently for the lights of dawn. Seek them, the light of love on the wings of prayer. So Emmanuel here, this is called Words of Hope, message number 35 on this book. Emmanuel here is telling us to ask for the help, for the assistance of those that have preceded, meaning went before us, in the journey beyond the grave. Those that are already discarnate spirits that are in the spirit realm, and they are there to help us too. They are there that we can seek their assistance. And Emmanuel's already telling us, and I bolded that, the last sentence, how we can do that. Through the wings of prayer. By praying. By connecting with the higher spirits for our benefactors. Those who are so willing and so ready to help us at all times. By connecting with them, entering into communion with them through a sincere prayer. So in the book Thought and Life, I dare say one of the best books by Emmanuel. Not messages only. It is more like lessons than messages. So it's not a romance. It's not messages. More like lessons. Each chapter is like a lesson. Thought and Life. This is also psychographed by Chico. He's going to be talking about keep watch and pray. So that's those words that we have seen so well and so often in the Bible, even that Jesus said. Keep watch and pray. When we think of to vibrate, to pray, to think, all these things are synonyms to a certain extent, where it's inviting us to vibrate in a higher frequency, so we can connect with those that want us doing well. So we can connect with those that truly love us, those that are truly there to help us in our trials and tribulations, in our early journey. He's going to say prayer impels the hidden energies of the heart. So the prayer is already saying here is not just a bunch of words being said either out loud or in our own minds when we're gathering the silence of the night perhaps. No, he's saying it's coming from the heart. So it's not necessarily the words that we're using, but the energy, the intention we're putting behind those things that are being said either in here or through here. So he's saying prayer impels the hidden energies of the heart, releasing them with the images of our desire through the living and plasticizing force of thought. So prayer is a type of thinking, but it's one that is filled with energy, surrounded by energy that comes from the heart. It is this emotion that will give the quality of the prayer, or that will give the prayer its quality. These images, look at what they're saying, what Emmanuel is saying, these images that we're projecting through our thoughts in a prayer, for instance, they ascend to the superior planes or superior spheres, touching the intelligences that surround us. and we receive answers from the divine plan. Saying that these words, well, like I was saying, when they're done with sentiment, they ascend to the higher planes and help is given. There's a very good example about prayer, and it's something that they call refracted prayer. In the book Between Heaven and Earth by André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier, where there's this girl that she's praying, her mother is already discarnate, so she's not among the living anymore, and her stepmother is suffering a lot, but this girl prays for her mother, for the mother to help her, for her biological mother to help her. She prays with all her heart, with all her sentiment, but what happens is the prayer didn't reach the mother directly, because her biological mother, in spirit now, free of the flesh, of the constraints of the flesh, she was there as an obsessor of the stepmother. So the girl was praying to her mother, thinking that her mother was in the higher plane and asking for her help, for the mother's help. But the mother was there in a low vibration. So what happened then with that prayer from that girl? Did it go to waste? Absolutely not. No prayer, no word spoken with the true sentiment of the love of God is going to go to waste. So her prayer, what they call refracted prayer, instead of going to the mother, went to the spirits in the higher planes, and they sent help to the girl and the mother. So that is a very good example. This happens very early in this book, this romance by André Luiz, and it shows again that it doesn't go to waste. Prayers like that don't go to waste. So in the book, The Problem of Life and Destiny, this is by Leon Denis. I dare say it's one of my favorite books. The Problem of Life and Destiny. He's going to talk about the invisible friends, the help from the invisible friends. He's going to say, but I never missed the help of my invisible friends. Never did my voice speak to them in vain. Since my first steps in this world, their influence has enveloped me. It is to their inspirations that I owe my best pages and my most vibrant traits. So Leon Denis here is recognizing the help of the invisible friends, this unseen influence, this invisible influence that we are all under, and he's recognizing that and how that is very important in his journey. Thank you so much. He's even saying is to their inspiration that I owe my best pages. He wrote a lot of books. He was very much a champion of Spiritism early on. And he's saying that he owes a lot of that to these invisible friends, to those that helped him when he needed them most. And he's even going to say, his invisible friends, they shared my joys and sorrows. And when the storm rumbled, I knew they were standing near me during the struggle. Without them, without their help, I would have had to interrupt my march and suspend my labor a long time ago. Sometimes during the retreat of the evening or the silence of the night, their voices speak to me, cradle me, comfort me. So he's even saying that without the help from the invisible benefactors, he would have stopped his march a long time ago. This was, obviously he's not among us anymore. This is the late 1800s, beginning of 1900s. But he's saying that because he's giving credit where credit is due in a sense. He's recognizing the help that he got from all these invisible friends, all these spirits that were there to help him and that are here to help us as well. We have more help than we fathom at times. And he's saying that without them, he would have stopped his march, meaning his earthly march, a long time ago. And he even saying in the last, I put the last sentence there, because he's saying sometimes during the retreat of the evening or the silence of the night, their voices speak to me, cradle me, comfort me. So Leon Denis is already giving us sort of like a roadmap for us, one thing we can do to connect with our friends, to connect with our benefactors, to connect with the spirits in a good way, with higher vibrations, with higher elevation, in the silence of the night, through the prayer. And he's saying, I can hear them, and they cradle me, They help me. They speak to me, comfort me. He's going to continue by saying, genius owes a great deal to inspiration, which is a form of mediumship. Look at that. In cases where this faculty was clearly detected, the individual of genius could not be considered as a mere instrument. Genius is above all an achievement of the past, the result of patient studies throughout centuries, of a slow and painful initiation. These antecedents develop in one's being a deep sensibility, which opens itself to higher influences. So he's saying here that a lot of this inspiration is through mediumship. A lot of this is them being inspired, these genius, these works of genius sometimes, being inspired by these friends from the invisible plane. And he's saying it is a form of mediumship, because we'll see we're all mediums to a certain extent. He's saying this is something that it is a form of mediumship, but he's also saying, but there's also some part of that is the person that worked through perhaps reincarnation after reincarnation, a certain trait, in a certain ability, a certain skill, that when they come, they have that inspiration because they have been working either in past reincarnations or when they were discarnate spirits in the spirit plane. So he's going to also say in certain individuals, these two causes, personal conquest, these things that he said that the person has worked laboriously previously as well. He says personal conquest and external inspirations, the influence of the invisible plane, combine with and complement one another. So he's talking exactly about co-creation and self-creation, and sort of drawing the line between them, which is a fuzzy line, but is one that we must be aware that a lot of these inspiration often comes through the spirits that want us to do good. Think about all the technology that is used for good nowadays that we had past 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And we know that the material plane is a copy of the higher plane, the spiritual plane. And the things that are developed there, they start to come here little by little, but they come through the incarnate ones that are influenced by the spirits, and a lot of them have worked before there, and they reincarnate with that purpose as well. And that's where he's talking about the individual achievements, the individual labor playing a role in this as well. Again, Divine Justice by Emmanuel. He says, the friends who preceded you in the spiritual homeland accompany you in the triumphs ignored by men and bless you with the sweat of patience in the necessary struggles. This is a message number 10 called You Live Forever. It's a beautiful message. He's saying, so I bolded a few words there. He continues by saying, they encourage you in the cause of pure love and sustain your energy so that your hope does not fade. The friends that preceded you in the journey. They share your joys and pains, teaching you to sow happiness in others so that you reap greater happiness. If you stumble, they stretch out their arms to you, and if you cry, they dry your tears. Above all, they wait for you, confident when you finish the task to hug you affectionately with the joy of someone welcoming a dear companion back home. What a beautiful message Emmanuel granted us and blessed us with this message, because it's saying exactly all the things that we receive from those who love us from beyond. And there are not a handful, there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of help that's available to us. And I purposely bolded from this message everything that they do. And if you think about it, look at how much help we receive every time from the friends that have preceded us in the journey, as Emmanuel says. Accompany you, bless you, encourage you, sustain your energy, share your joys and pains, teach you, stretch their arms to you, dry your tears, wait for you, hug you. So if anything we can take from the lecture today is we're never alone, and we're never without assistance and help. Look at how many things they do. In the book Planetary Transition, this is a book by Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, psychographed by Divaldo Franco. He says, it is still a great challenge to do good in today's tumultuous world. However, those who dedicate themselves to the practice of charity and the exercise of doing good should not be discouraged, because if there are executioners from beyond, obsessors, spirits that still want to dwell in the evil, he says, always willing to carry their heinous crimes, guardian angels also swarm, vigilant and quick in the execution of legitimate fraternity. And all we have to do is elevate our vibrations, take care of our internal temple, our internal altar here as well, so we can connect with them, with these that are ready to help us. Intuition, Leon Denis is going to talk again to us about this. He's going to say it is in most cases only one of the forms used by the inhabitants of the unseen to transmit their warnings and instructions to us. Other times it will be revelation of the deep consciousness to normal consciousness. So we're almost diving a little bit into psychology here that Joanna D'Angelo is so good at talking to us about. He says in the first case, it can be considered an inspiration. Through mediumship, the spirit infuses his ideas into the understanding of the medium. So it is through mediumship, which is this capacity to communicate with the spiritual world, that we have this inspiration. But he's going to say something, and I put an image there because I really, really like this analogy that Leon Denis makes. He says, the broad stretch of a river cannot flow through a narrow riverbed. So a lot of the times, if you think about it, maybe put an arrow there so we can get an idea of the direction of the water, perhaps. The broad stretch of a river cannot flow through a narrow riverbed. So he's saying, similarly, inspiring spirit will succeed in transmitting through the organism of the medium only those of its conceptions which find an adequate mediumistic outlet. Meaning sometimes there are spirits that want to help us and they have all this body of knowledge, but if we're narrowing ourselves and we have the narrow knowledge perhaps, all of that cannot flow through. So only a little bit is going to be able to pass in slowly, way less water than as we see on the right side there. So he's saying in that as well for us. So it's almost like an invitation for ourselves to prepare ourselves better, to receive that big influx of love, of help, of knowledge through mediumship. Again, back to Emmanuel, he's going to say, and if you feel alone in your faith, remember Jesus. One day, he was abandoned and crucified on top of a hill, contemplating deserting friends and gratuitous executioners, ungrateful beneficiaries and unconscious adversaries. In human conceptualization, he was completely alone. However, he with God, and God with him formed a majority before the wild crowd. He seemed alone, but he never was. And this is something for us to remember. All that Jesus went through, how he was alone, he seemed alone in the end, but he with God, God with him, was the majority, and formed way more than any crowd could ever form. For us to understand a little bit more about unseen influence and how mediumship works as well, we have the book The Consoler. It's a book psychographed by Chico, dictated by Emmanuel. It's a questions and answers. Question 383, it is asked, is it accurate to consider all human beings as mediums? All people, regardless of their evolutionary level, demonstrate some degree of mediumship. This attribute of the spirit represents the dawning of new perceptions for the beings of the future, when they will notice the expansion of the narrow window of their five senses as a result of the advancement of the world's views. We must understand mediumship without mysticism. He's saying here, this is an attribute of the spirit. We are spirits. We have a body right now. Those who have a body right now, they're listening to this. We have a body. We're inhabiting a body. But we are, in essence, spirits. So in a way, the mediumship is a way to communicate with those that are like us, spirits. bringing this normality to it has a lot of responsibility, the work of the medium, but we don't have to look at it with mysticism. We look at it as spirits communicating with spirits, and we do that through the thoughts. What is the greatest need for mediums then? 387. The first need for mediums is to educate themselves in the gospel before committing to major spiritist tasks, or they risk bumping into the specter of individualism at the expense of their mission. The specter of individualism, aka selfishness and pride, the two scourges of our times. Because if we think about also the mediumship that is used in a way that's not positive, that doesn't contribute, or a mediumship when it's used to gather resources, for instance. So it is saying the first need is to educate ourselves, because even if we think about what he's saying in the matter of the senses, it's an attribute of the spirit that we have. But the thing he's saying is the narrow window of the five senses. Our senses, the five senses that we have, are still very rudimentary when we're thinking about the totality of the spirit and all the power that the spirit has, all the capacity that our spirit has. Our five senses are very limited still. They are what we need for this evolutionary moment right now, but they are still very rudimentary, very simple. So can mediums disregard their studies and count only on their spiritual guides for all their needs? As dedicated and evolved as they may be, discarnate mentors can neither restrain the will nor eliminate the essential struggles from mediums' lives, because it is through these difficulties that human beings redeem their criminal, obscure past and acquire new merits. If a medium expects a great deal from their mentors, it is only fair that their mentors expect a great deal of effort from the medium in return. So the more we ask, the more we have to be willing to give. And the more we're going to be asked to give as well. The more we're asking of our mentors. And I love the question, because it's like, oh, if I have like a lot of mediumship is well developed, can I get everything intuition and get all the answers that I need? No. Still got to study, still got to go through all of that. And they're going to say that they cannot walk for us. They cannot trail our paths. We have to trail our paths ourselves. And they're saying here, they cannot eliminate the essential struggles or restrain the will. We have free will. We have free will to do as we see fit. But the problem is, sometimes we may be just waiting for them to help us and guide us and trail a difficult path for us, when that doesn't happen, right? And that does not exist. So he's saying here, just don't be fooled. Like, just study, work, and if you're asking a lot, be ready to give a lot as well. Because especially if we have a lot of the mediumship is well developed, a lot's going to be asked, because there comes a great responsibility with a sort of skill, let's call it, the trait that is developed in that person. The practice of expecting everything from a mentor can turn into a detestable habit and compromise the most precious potential of the soul. Laziness, idleness are not our allies in our evolutionary path. So they're saying you gotta have, Emmanuel always told Chico, discipline, 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 right? We have to have discipline. We have to put our hearts in whatever it is that we're doing. And if it's a work of a medium, we have to be very, very serious with that responsibility. Help from the invisible realm. This is from the way, the truth, and the life. This is message number 100. Says, help from the invisible realm is incontestable and unfailing in its multiform expressions when the time is right. But it is essential that believers do not get accustomed to this type of collaboration, that they learn to walk by themselves, convinced that they are in the world in order to learn, and that they are not allowed to ask their instructors to solve the problems that are necessary in their positions as students. When we were in school and we were taking a difficult test, we wouldn't come to the teacher and say, can you do this for me? Right? Fill it out, I put my name there, just answer for me. Right? We don't do that. So we can't expect, and this is another another book already also saying the same thing. We can't expect everything to be given to us, to be handed to us. Their help is there. They're there to help us. But the same way that a teacher is there to help us, to teach us, but we must do the test ourselves, in the sense that we must trail those difficult paths in order to evolve, in order to learn, in order to expiate sometimes things that we have to expiate. Debts that we acquired from a previous existence in this world, or even when we're not here. And when we're talking about unseen influence, invisible influence, we've been talking a lot about getting the help, connecting with the spirits through prayers, through thoughts, but there's also the other side of the coin that we must talk about as well in this sort of lecture. Obsessions and the influence of the spirits that are still dwelling in evil sentiments. So question 469 by the Spirits book says, by what means can we neutralize the influence of evil spirits? By doing only what is right and putting all your trust in God, you repel the influence of inferior spirits and prevent them from obtaining power over you. Take care not to listen to the suggestions of spirits who inspire you with evil thoughts, stir up discord among you, and excite in your evil passions. Distrust especially those who flatter your pride, for in doing so they attack you on your weakest side. This is why Jesus makes you say the Lord's Prayer. Let us not succumb to temptation, but deliver us from evil. There's a lot in this answer. So first and foremost, by doing what is right, by doing what deep down in our conscience, which is where the laws of God are written, we know what's right and wrong. Deep down, we already know that. We have this compass. We don't have a GPS, perhaps, to know exactly how to go and where to go. But we have a compass. We have a north there in our conscience. Each one of us. By doing what is right according to that, and putting all your trust in God, knowing that a lot of the things that happen to us that seem very unfair are in God's time. Sometimes we want things to be in our time, but it's in God's time. And they're saying you repel the influence of inferior spirits and prevent them from obtaining power over you. Because if we go back to 459, how much do they influence our thoughts and actions? More than we suppose. The evil ones as well. Because there's a lot, and if we go through André Luiz's collection, we see a lot of the influence of spirits still dwelling, like I said, in evil sentiments, in inferior regions that are very, very smart, very persuasive. They're saying we can prevent them from taking power over us, and they already give one hint here that I love, and I put it in bold, like bolded there. Distrust especially those who flatter your pride, because they know what we're weak on. The malevolent ones that really want us to succumb, either because of ourselves or because of the work that we're doing, they know where to touch our buttons, where to push our buttons. Sorry. So we have to be aware. We have to be watching, keep watching, pray as we learn from Jesus, putting our trust in God and doing what is right. Those who dedicate, back to the consoler, those who dedicate themselves to the task of curing obsessions need to consider, first of all, the need for inner illumination of the disturbed medium, because the cure itself lies in their spiritual education, studying, having discipline, doing what is right. The medium. The obsessed person, this is question 933, the obsessed person who gives his body without moral resistance to ignorant and disturbed entities is like the artist who gives his precious violin to a malefactor. Using the idea of this instrument. So if you give your instrument to somebody that doesn't take care of it, how do you think you're going to get it back? And first of all, are you sure you're going to get it back? To what point? And also, how are you going to get it back? Probably destroyed, not well taken care of. Right? So the idea here is that as mediumship being this instrument, we must make good use of it. We must be watchful for those who want to use us in the wrong way. What is to be understood by the expression guardian angel? Now we switch a little bit back to the gears of those who want to help us as well. Guardian angel, a spiritual protector of high degree. Because this is an expression that has been used for centuries perhaps. And they asked there, what can we understand by guardian angel? A spiritual protector of high degree. And what is the mission then of this spirit protector? That's the next question, 491. That of a father towards his children, to lead the object of his protection into the right road, to aid him with his counsels, to console him in his afflictions, and to sustain his courage under the trials of his earthly life. So the guardian angel, this spirit protector, these invisible benefactors that are there ready to help us, always willing to help us. Does the spirit protector feel sorrow on seeing a ward taking the wrong road? And does not such sight disturb his own felicity, his own happiness, his own being? He is grieved at his errors and pities him. But this affliction has none of the anguish of terrestrial paternity, because he knows, this is an interesting one, because he knows, the spirit protector knows that there is a remedy for the evil, and that what is not done today will be done tomorrow. So they first say it's like a father towards a son. When you see your son succumb and get hurt, as a father hurts more on us, I feel. But they're saying there's a difference there, because unlike terrestrial paternity, what happens is that spirit protectors, they are more involved, and they know that what is not done today will be done tomorrow. So if they see their ward succumb, trip in their evolutionary path, or in whatever it was that they said, oh, I'm going to be doing this, and they see them tripping and falling and stumbling and rolling and getting up and stumbling, because they know that what is not done today will be done tomorrow. Meaning, we are all marching towards our own evolution towards goodness, and if we stumble and we did evil, let's say, they know we're gonna eventually do good. They're gonna be there to help us, as we saw a few slides back. But they know that what's not done today will be done tomorrow. And talking about unseen assistance, Paul and Stephen, one of the hallmarks, I would say, of the Spiritist collection of romances. We have this big moment, a few moments where Saul sees, I'm not getting too much detail on this one, but Saul sees a light, like a being of light, come to him and talk to him, providing him with assistance, and he even thinks it's Jesus. So he goes back to Simon Peter and says, oh, Jesus spoke with me, told me that to leave Jerusalem because my older friends are not ready for my testimony. But that was actually Stephen. That was actually one that was in the past, not so distant past, was somebody that Saul convicted, and in the end, his actions lead him to die. But Stephen, being way more elevated, was there to help Saul. This invisible and unseen assistance. And even when Stephen is falling asleep, we have that passage, that beautiful passage in the book, where he's there and he falls asleep. He goes into this spiritual realm for a few moments there, and he sees Abigail and he sees her brother Stephen, and they're there talking to him and saying, we've been with you, we've been following you, we've been helping you, we've been there guiding you, you're never alone. They say it way better than that, but that's the main idea. And then we have a very good conversation that ensues from that. In the book Love and Hate, this is psychographed by Yvonne, she says a human creature, that Charles actually says, a human creature will never be so miserable and devoid of the sympathies of the invisible plane that it will no longer have a handful of disinterested and loyal friends ready to help it on a fair occasion. Many of these will be affections conquered in the course of previous lives, others missionaries to whom it was entrusted for the work of progress by the supreme power of the universe. Meaning, nobody is that miserable and that bad that they don't have a handful of people that are ready to help them. Could be people from their past lives, their past paths, or it could be those who are entrusted with the work of helping someone else, to their own development as well. So nobody is without help. And he goes on to say, often in the daily sequence of the journey that progress imposes, meaning the trials and the tribulations, on earth as in space, meaning not only here on earth, but also as in space, these luminous guides warn or advise their pupils, pointing out paths to follow. No matter where we are, we have that help available to us. No matter who we are, what we've done, we have that help available to us. Now, getting here towards the end, St. Augustine said some beautiful words on this in the Spirit's book. He said, "Do not fear to weary us with your questions. Remain, on the contrary, always in connection with us. You will thus be stronger and happier." To those who may think it is impossible that spirits of high degree should bind themselves to a task so laborious, and demanding so much patience on their part, we reply that we influence your souls while at many million leagues from you. To us, space is nothing. And while living in another world, our spirits preserve their connection with yours. We possess qualities of which you can form no idea. But be sure that God has not imposed upon us a task above our strength, and that He has not abandoned you upon the earth without friends and without support. St. Augustine is urging us to seek for help through prayer, through the thoughts, through our actions. And he's saying, don't worry about wearing us. Don't hesitate to ask for help, to ask for guidance. Because we have powers that you have no idea. And I think that's a very comforting feeling and thought for us to end today. That knowing that help is already happening and help is always there. All we have to do is truly ask. And I wish everybody a blessed week. Thank you so much.